All right, give me the 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, I'm Joe Soares here at BizBuzz headquarters.
Hello, this is Mark Leone, and welcome to BizBuzz here at the Comcast Studios in Milford, Mass. Along with co-host Joe Soares. You wanted me to...
Hello, welcome everyone to another show of BizBuzz, where we are discovering local businesses and bringing them home to you. I'm your host, Joe Soares. My co-host with me here, Mark Leone. It's great to see everyone again, and we got a great show for you this evening. First, I want to introduce our mascot here, Mr. BizBuzz. You can see him here at home. It's our new mascot that we brought with us here, and he's gonna be watching the shows with us and taping with us going forward. But as I said, we have a great show for you this evening. Our guest here is Kristen Anderson, aka the Oil Lady. Yes, she calls herself the Oil Lady, ladies and gentlemen, and pleasure to have you on the show, Kristen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on. So, Kristen, why don't you just, tell us what everyone's probably dying to know. Why do you have the name the Oil Lady?
That is an interesting question. I have the name the Oil Lady because a neighbor actually gave me that name unbeknownst to me several years ago. I was helping out my community by buying oil very inexpensively for them, and she actually started to refer to me, to everyone, as the Oil Lady. And a long story short is her brother moved back to town, and he called me up one day and he said, "Ha ha ha, is this the Oil Lady?" I was a bit taken back. I didn't even know what to say, and then I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? That works. I like it. And it stuck, and everybody's called me that ever since.
That's a great story. Now, so you're in the oil business. What exactly? You talked about buying and selling oil. What exactly are you doing for your customers?
Well, that's another good question. I'm an independent oil broker. So what I do is I help people find home heating oil very inexpensively. I also do some other things, but just on the heating oil front, how it works is I represent municipalities, churches, homeowners, and businesses all across the state of Massachusetts and northern Rhode Island. So when you as a homeowner or a business person, whether you're buying 100 gallons or you're buying several thousand gallons at one time, you give me a call and I group you with a lot of other people. I call around different companies and I negotiate the price lower based on volume as well as where the market is at that point in time. And then I coordinate the order. It's usually clustered to a very small geographic area, and I find the best price I can. I call everybody back, I tell them the price. Do you want it? Yes or no? It's an at-will system. So you are determining your own fate. You can say yes or you could say no. You pay directly to the oil company and you watch your own tank. I always recommend to people never to let their tank fall below 1/4 full or however much they need to get through the worst 2 weeks of winter. And when they're ready, they call me. I either already have an order in process or I create one for them.
So let's use a business, or it's an office building, let's say. So someone might buy 1,000 gallons a month. So could they say to you, hey, give me a call, I need so many gallons every month. Then you would call them on such and say, and over the next week you're going to be getting some oil.
Sure. I have clients who are high volume users, whether they are municipality, church, or business. And I give them a call once every 2 weeks. I still ask them, make sure if your business picks up, you have a handle on the situation. If the oil is dependent on, your business, your usage. So give me a call if for some reason within that 2-week time frame, or maybe it's sooner. It really depends on the type of business. We sit down before they sign on with me and we look at their yearly usage and try to scope out, is it seasonal usage? Is it all year long? And if so, per their gallons per year, how often do I need to contact them? Homeowners, though, are on a different side of things. They watch their own tanks and call me at will. But businesses, usually I control that a little bit more if they want me to, and I give them, shall we say, a quasi-automatic service.
Did you grow up around here, Kristen?
I did not. I grew up in Connecticut, in Fairfield County.
Okay. And where do you live now?
I live in Millville, Massachusetts,
Okay.
small town
So
just
in the
south
area.
of here. Yeah.
How did you get into to buying and selling oil here?
Well, it was probably a little more than 6 years ago. It was in the springtime, and I walked in my backyard, and there was my neighbor, and I talked to him for a few minutes. He's an older gentleman, very nice, and he starts complaining about the price of oil and how high things are. Now, this is a while ago, before the run-up of oil. And he's complaining about the price. I said, really? I said, well, what did you pay last year? And he told me. I said, oh, wow, that's really bad. And he was a bit annoyed with me. He said, so how much did you pay? And I told him, and his face just dropped. And he said, how did you do that? I said, I buy in volume, I watch the market, I try to buy at the most opportune times when things are low, and then I wait. He says, well, can you do that for me? I said, yeah. And he says, oh, and by the way, my son across the street, my daughter lives down there, and I also have an aunt over in Uxbridge. I said,
So that's
okay.
how it started.
Yeah. I had had this idea many years ago when I first moved to Millville, 13 years ago, and I asked a number of my neighbors, do you want to do this? I'd never asked him, actually, for some odd reason. And everybody said, no, what do we care? We could pay whatever it is. It doesn't matter. And I thought, that's interesting. But then they all went bankrupt, and they lost their homes, which was very sad. But perhaps they should have saved more money. Maybe it would have helped.
So let's say the average house uses 1,000 gallons, 1,200 gallons. Is that the type of customer that you would also help?
Absolutely. I help pretty much everybody. The average customer used to use between 1,000 and 1,200 gallons. That was the norm. With high oil prices and people trying to conserve, especially money, they've dropped that down. The average is usually 800. Some people think it's as high as 1,000, but I don't really see that much anymore. I'd say 800 to 900 gallons, sometimes even lower. I have clients who use 300 gallons a year. They're very frugal.
So they also have a wood stove, I'm assuming?
Pellets, wood stove, yeah. Some clients have coal. They'll have electric heaters. Everybody is doing everything they can to conserve as much as possible.
So how do you find this low price? So you'll call all the local people, you go to a distributor, or I don't want you to give any
Sure.
secrets, but I was just
I do a lot of phone calls. I know a lot of owners of oil companies, and I just call their cell phone directly. I said,
Okay.
listen, look at the rack today. I said, I'm looking at it. I look at the NYMEX for the New York Harbor rate so we can see where things are trading for the HO, for heating oil, not for crude, because that's different.
Right.
And let's talk. How many gallons am I talking about? Maybe it's 8,000 for your little geographic area in the winter. And that's just one day. And I'll do that several times a week for your area.
Okay.
So if I go with a particular company and they're competitive, seriously competitive in their pricing, I'll stay with them. I don't care. Not be competitive once, and I'm gone.
Right.
I'm not even going to accept the offer from you. I'm going to nicely say, well, I think I could do better somewhere else, and I hang up. Usually 99.9% of the times, especially in recent years, the owner will balk, say no, because they'll ask me, well, what price are you thinking, Kristen? I'll say, well, where the market's at, tank farm will probably change at 12 o'clock, and so I think it's going to be this, X. And they say, okay. And he says, no, fine. I say, have a nice day, and I'll hopefully talk to you next time. And I hang up. He knows I'm fast at dialing. The next time I pick up that phone, I'm dialing. It's another oil company. He is going to say yes. And then I'm going to continue with him until he gives me a price that's not appropriate. And so they immediately call me back, and they say, fine, we'll even do a little better than that. And we go from there. They really don't have a lot of bargaining power with me because I do pay a lot of attention to what's going on.
And you've got relationships with these people, so they recognize your voice when you call and say, oh, it's the oil lady again calling.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do recognize my voice. They send me cards at different points.
Well, because
in the
you're
day.
giving them potentially, well, you're grouping these people together sort of in a pool, your customers, and giving them a lot of business.
I give these oil companies a tremendous amount of business. They have a lot of respect for me. And when we sit down, we talk about the upcoming season. I have some interesting insights on where I think oil might be going. And often we have a meeting of the minds,
Yeah.
because we're all watching. if you're going to be an oil company, if you're going to be an owner of an oil company or anything to do with it, you really need to watch the markets. And that includes not just supply and demand, because we're not really joined with that anymore when it comes to the pricing of oil and crude and other commodities as well. It's really about the trade. So I listen to
talk
the
about
news.
that, because you said before the show, oil is no longer a commodity. So what do you mean by that?
It is a physical commodity,
Yeah.
but it is not traded like a commodity. It's traded as a trade. Higher the better. Commodities are usually based on supply and demand, and that's why they run within a range. Sometimes it's seasonal, sometimes there's unique events that drive the price up or down, but it is supply and demand reports that drive it. Now I look at a number of different reports that come out from the government. I look at other governments and what reports they're sending out. I look at their websites, I look at national news, I look at local news a little bit, but really I'm looking for global politics, global news. I want to know about weather, and I disseminate all this information into what I base my opinions on. And so that's why sometimes a client will ask me for my opinion. They'll say, well, I need oil, but I can wait till the end of the week or say next week. And they'll ask me, what do you think? And I'll say, my opinion is, if you were my brother or sister, I would either tell them sometimes buy now is my opinion, or wait. And nobody has
But
a
I guess my question is, so how do you? I hear what you're saying. You're watching, what's going on in other countries, and yet, but when you're competing with, like you said, the traders on the floor, they just want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
How can you predict? It just seems like it would be very difficult to predict where the price is going to go, because it's like you said, it's not based on supply and demand. Really, they're just
not.
looking to make some money.
You do hear within the news, embedded in there, a lot of whisperings about what they think.
Mm-hmm.
So I do watch and read a number of publications and different news entities to hear about what the traders and hedge funds are thinking. Sometimes they're even interviewed. So
Right,
I pay a
right.
lot of attention to that. That's an important element,
Sure.
because they really tend to sway the market one way or another, whether it's reasonable or not.
How does it work for these distributors? So you say, okay, I'm going to need 10,000 gallons of oil this week or next week or whatever. So you call them today, and they know what that price is going to be up until noon of that day. So they kind of make a decision that says, okay, I'm going to give it for X number of dollars per gallon. And then, now if they call and buy it, does that lock in the price for them as well for that given day?
It does.
So they say, I need 10,000 gallons. They'll ship it, and then they'll distribute it off to these people over the next day or week or whatever. Is that kind of how it works?
Kind of. There's a couple scenarios. Across the state, I do deal with some, say, mid to larger size oil companies, and some very, very small where it's just a guy in a truck. Now, the bigger companies, some of them have mini tank farms. So they've already purchased this oil, it's already on hand, they know what inventories are coming in next, and they know the price point at which they bought this.
Okay.
So then they can say, this is the price point, here's my profit, I can come down because I'm going to sell several trucks today. And if I
Okay.
do it right, I'm going to be selling a lot of trucks every week. This is almost like a boost, supercharging your business.
So those people, the oil companies that have the plants, if you say you will, whatever you call
Tank
them,
farm.
the tank farms, yes, they're at an advantage then, as opposed to the person that maybe just has the one truck load.
Perhaps. And sometimes they
Well, I guess,
have been
yeah,
at quite an advantage where they've been able to, let's say, cut the mountaintop off and fill the valleys. So they've not paid the high prices. They've been able to stabilize pricing for their customers and keep it in the mid-range because they did buy at an opportune time.
But like you said, it's all relative to, okay, what'd you buy it for? So I guess maybe not.
What your insight is,
Yeah.
did you get nervous? Did you buy at the wrong time?
Right.
Did you pay too much? And now you're stuck at a much higher price point all season where your business is eroding. People are leaving. Yeah, it really depends. One guy with a truck, there's two scenarios. They either go to the rack, and whether it's a small tank farm or down in Rhode Island, and they buy directly for that moment what the price is at. Or some of them have the option of doing electronic purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically get onto their account with the Tank Farm online, say, if I call them and say, I need a couple of trucks for Thursday, they say, okay. They calculate how many, we sit there, calculate how many gallons we need. We estimate it together. Because when somebody wants a fill, that's not an exact number, like saying I want 100 or 200 gallons. That's a little bit different. I have my clients estimate where their tank is at by looking at the float. But in any case, they're going to go and they're going to decide to buy that oil at a specific time during the day. Sometimes I'll call them if I see the market dip, and because I know we have an order that's coming for the following day or a couple days out. Usually it's only a day out. And I call them and I said, it's really low right now. This or that just happened. I think you should buy now. And they will. They usually follow my advice.
I think there are, I guess, some people that call every time they need some oil. But I think there's also some people that will say, okay, I'm going to prepay for 1,000 gallons today. What's your price? Another person might enter into a contract that says, for the next 12 months, I'm going to pay X number of dollars per gallon. And then there's, I guess, some of them are out there, they'll say, well, right now oil is this, and I'll lock that in for the year, but if the price falls, I'll even charge a little bit less. Or I'll lower it to what the rate of the day is, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Or should be. So how can they come up with that number a year in advance? What are they doing?
They're buying futures. So they're buying contracts per month going out based on what they think they'll do for volume. That's one way of doing it. You can just keep buying rolling contracts. Well, not exactly rolling, but each month look a little bit farther out and buy those contracts. Sometimes people buy them many months in advance.
So they can, how long they can go out a set number of months to know what their cost of oil is going to be?
It's all about money. You want to front the money? Go ahead. So you could probably go out about 12 months, right about that. But that's, remember, you're paying for it. And there's a lot of dynamics that happen between now and next year now.
Gosh, yeah.
And how could you tell if you've bought it at too high of a price? A lot of there's a lot of global politics. There's a lot of events that could occur that could drastically change the price one way or another. You need to be very careful. We're in very turbulent waters. And when the traders get a hold of that information, it seems to be magnified.
Yeah, it seems like
Greatly
it's always magnified, sure. So, where did you go to school, Kristen? It sounds like you have some sort of background in trading commodities. Were you go to school training for this, or?
There's no training for this.
Really?
I've got news for you. I do have a business background.
Yeah.
I did go to college for marketing. But no, I can't imagine training for this. There's a lot that goes into my opinion and where I think things are going. When we had the first run-up of oil, at one point during that season, before the price got too high, I literally dropped everything one morning and said, wow, they are going to go for it. There were rumors about a man in Texas at a party and also competition between two traders in the pits in New York that they were going to drive the prices higher. So these three different men, and they were going to do it. So I dropped everything. I called a large company. I told him how many customers I currently had, and I said, give me a lock-in. I didn't tell him why. I said, give me a lock-in for everybody. Here's the gross number for volume for the year, gallons. He gave me a really low rate. I think it was either $3.11 or $3.15 a gallon. And I called everybody in one day. I stayed up till late at night. I called every single person with a quick message. Here's the company, here's the price. Do you want it, yes or no? Let's go. It's a 12-month contract. There weren't many people who took it overall. It was really surprising.
Yeah.
And I told them, this is my best advice if you were my mother, sister, brother.
Right.
To lock in now. I am going to lock in. And so not a lot of people took it, but hours later, people were calling me back the next morning wishing they had. The offer was off the table. The price just went through the roof. So.
And you had read about this in the, or you heard about it someplace, or?
I was watching a number of different events.
Yeah.
And I said, this is it. I said, we are not going to see this go any lower. It's going to get out of control. And then as soon as the 12-month contract ended, we stepped into pricing that was slightly lower than that.
Right.
So I think we did pretty good.
Besides the oil business, you were mentioning before the show that you also are doing, you get involved in greener energy?
Yes, green energy. I not only do it for the churches, an entire diocese that I help and represent, I also do it for municipalities. I am the Green Communities Coordinator for the town of Millville. So that's a little bit of a new title.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it is new, and it's an interesting place to be. Basically what it means is I'm the liaison between the state and the town, and I help create a green community, whether it's changing building code, getting grants for the town, all sorts of things. There's a lot of work that goes into creating a green community. You have to take all the information from all the different departments and their buildings, often vehicles too, and take it all into account month by month, bill by bill. Put it all into the state's tree, they call it. Once you have all that information in, you can then apply for your application to become a green community. And you're going to be trying to cut, obviously, not just your costs, but your energy use. And then change over, hopefully, into things that are not just more efficient, but also things that are green. And there's a lot of grants out there. There's a lot of ability to not just save money for the municipalities, in some cases to make money.
What would be an example of some of the things that you've done for the town or some of these other towns that you could replicate other places?
Well, we're looking in Millville right now, we're looking into large solar arrays, one that might be on the landfill. There's also town-owned land that is difficult, shall we say, to build housing on. But the town owns it, and it is in an area that would not affect, from what it seems at the moment, any of the homeowners. So that may be a place where we might be able to put some wind turbines if it's conducive to it and it doesn't affect people. There's also the possibility of doing water turbines in the Blackstone River. There's 2 existing heads, and that could produce a significant amount of energy that would not only cover the energy use by the different municipal buildings, but actually give them a year after year payback. Most towns have these resources. They just need to decide what they want to do.
Now, you were mentioning one time about drilling for some sort of renewable energy. What was that again now?
Geothermal?
Yeah, how does that work?
Geothermal is an interesting way of gaining heat or cooling from the ground. The ground is at a set temperature the deeper you go, and it is pretty consistent. So that as you pump well water in and it heats up in the winter, then you've actually created a margin of savings. You're not bringing the cold water with your oil-fired or your natural gas-fired furnace up to that level. It's already at that level. And so therefore then you just need to boost it a little higher. Maybe you use a mixed system. Like
How
solar.
far down do you get to drill for that, Kristen?
That depends. That's, I'm sorry, a loaded
Depends
question.
on where you are, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Some places you don't have to go as deep as you do in others. Some places have used long trenching to make a long loop that comes from the building and then back again. Others have done single core, 8-foot diameter all the way down to whatever level they need to be at, and then coil it up. I've also seen in Denmark, they're doing something very interesting at one facility. The project is complete. It's very compelling. Several years ago, they actually have a retractable roof that looks like a lawn, and what it is covering is essentially an in-ground pool. The water is heated through solar panels, the glycol type panels, and then pumped back into the pool, the underground pool, as a reservoir to then draw heat and hot water from. So that was
like your
very
own little farm.
Yeah, that's
There's a lot of new technology out there that's making green energy easier to use, more affordable to buy and install, and having a greater payback in a shorter period of time.
Do you ever think we're going to get to the point where we're not relying on oil anymore? Do you see that
We
in
have
the future?
to be. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
When clients ask me my opinion on that, I tell them I really feel that they have, I'd really like to see them change and get out of oil, somewhere between 3 and 5 years. If it takes them as long as 8, that's okay, but I think they're a bit behind the 8 ball at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's too volatile. If you're looking at global markets and the potential thereof, look at Asia, look at China, look at India. Most of their population is at age of majority or pretty close. So therefore, they're going to start getting married and having children.
Right.
And those are some big populaces. I believe the number was 70% is at between the age of 12 and 18. I was reading that somewhere several months ago.
Yeah.
So in those countries, often it is normal for a person to get married between
Sure.
12 and 14.
Right.
So if they're going to start households of their own, a lot of them are really embracing the Western world type of lifestyle. They are, whether it's a physical item like a bottle of water that does take energy to make, and the plastics and everything else are usually, unless it's a plant-based product, are made out of crude derivatives. They're going to need more energy. They're going to need more oil.
More oil.
And we can't sustain these levels of usage. And then there's other areas like South America that should be blossoming with their next Olympics.
Yeah.
That's going to happen there. That'll really change their economies quite a bit. And when that, just like in China, when an event like that happens, that changes the game for the entire world.
Right.
All your global planning for energy changes, it shifts. Because now you're bringing people up to a new type of lifestyle that they want more.
And
So it's very interesting. Now, somebody wants to use your services. How do they find you? You have a website, a phone number.
I
and
do
I also have $1
website.
million question. Where do you think the price of oil is going? Have to ask that.
Okay, let's do the easy one first,
Yeah.
and that takes a bit longer because there's a lot of opinion in that, and I don't have any psychic powers, so I can't tell you for sure. My website is theoillady.com,
Okay, great.
and they can also reach me. My business phone is 508-876-9844, and they can reach me. Boy, so you want to know
in about 1 minute.
About 1 minute. Okay. Where oil's going?
The short version.
I feel, in my opinion, we should see oil be depressed over the next several months, and there is a historic low that does happen at a point during the summer. If people want to use my services, I do the best to pinpoint that spot. If they had been a customer of mine last year, they would have paid $2.09 a gallon. I would have called them, they would have filled up at $2.09 prior to the winter season. Next year, I see another year, we're off to the races. Get on your horse and ride. So I think people should think hard about saving money with anticipation for the coming winter. If they want to do a lock-in, the summer's the time. They can give me a call. I can arrange to negotiate lock-ins for groups of people. That's not a problem. I've done it in the past. I can do it again.
Good stuff.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It was very informative. People often wonder how they come up with these numbers for oil and whatnot, so you gave a little insight into that. Everybody, as you said, has their own opinion. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks, Kristen. And that's going to conclude our show for tonight for Biz Buzz. And it was great seeing everyone again. And check out our Facebook page, Biz Buzz. And we'll see you in a week. Thanks so much.